Song goes 3 minutes and 17 seconds. So we can play it that long while I'm getting the Facebook Live, our new feature here, so that you can watch wherever you may be. Tri-Cities or beyond to Tri-Cities Sports Now, the show that owns the Tri-Cities on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. Who am I? Why, I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-Cities sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-Cities Sports Now. And now, for those of you watching on Facebook, you can see me reach for my Marky's monologue commentary. Oh my goodness, where is it? As we will get to coming out. It's Pruitt, Jeremy Pruitt, our long national nightmare. Hey, John Curry used to say the Vols were a national brand. I'm not sure how many national brands there really are in college athletics. Notre Dame likes to think they are, and they've got the network. I mean, they've got NBC, so maybe they are. But the thing is, I really and truly think that the national appeal of Notre Dame is kind of limited. Okay, I'm sure there are Notre Dame fans listening in, that sort of thing. But, you know where I thought that Notre Dame had that sort of college football's America's team type of regard was Wheeling, West Virginia. But then again, if you're in Wheeling, West Virginia, I mean, you don't know where you are. You don't know if you're in West Virginia. You don't know if you're in Pennsylvania. You don't know if you're in Ohio. You don't know who to root for. Well, there's Notre Dame. And we have a good Catholic presence. And, you know, Lou Holtz was from East Liverpool. So that made some sense. Otherwise, you know, it's Pruitt, folks. It's Pruitt. It's Pruitt. It's Pruitt. Took 2 athletic directors. Took 2 weeks. Took a lot of embarrassment. I mean, I am getting, you know, from friends of mine from all over the country, they're coming out and they're saying, you know, my Pee-wee team did a better coaching search than what Tennessee did. My Pee-wee team did one. Okay. And there's something to be said for that. But I think one of the reasons why it took Phil Fulmer a week to hire a coach might be because it's Phil Fulmer doing the search. Hold on with that thought. I mean, we've heard Pete, Yahoo Sports, and Pete Thamel say he doesn't know how to do a search. Well, I'm the guy who's been critical of, I said, well, Phil Fulmer has hired a coach before Jeremy Pruitt. By the way, the announcement for that, 6:05. 6:05 is the official announcement. Jeremy Pruitt shakes hands and he says that, you know, out with Brady Hoke and so on and so forth. But the thing about Jeremy Pruitt is that he is hired, he's a coordinator. That's not a bad thing. I really got upset when people, I don't know if T. Martin is ready to be a head football coach. Yes, he is. And so is Jeremy Pruitt. But will he be allowed? Okay, let's look at this search. First off, John Curry starts it. He's going to bring in Greg Schiano. I'm thinking, now Schiano has his head coaching experience, and he has his 11-2 season at Rutgers, which really is sensational. I mean, you know, Rutgers is in the Big Ten right now because of Schiano. And Schiano is not the coach at Tennessee right now because not so much of a fan uprising, although I think that did have... Here's the question. How much is a fan uprising and how much... You know, we'll talk about this, some things that Clay Travis did, is an internal idea. How much of it is that Phil Fulmer sabotaged the deal? I do think that when you had, you know, state legislatures coming out, you cannot overlook the Penn State situation. I do think that, yeah, the uprising, and yeah, the fan revolt, I will say, I'm trying to think here, that did have influence. However, my point being, the fan revolt, in my opinion, certainly the politicians' revolt, stemmed a lot around this guy probably knew something about Jerry Sandusky back in the day. The suspicion of that. Mike McQueary saying that he knew. And to believe that Mike McQuarrie, you've got to believe that Mike McQuarrie is a liar. And Mike McQuarrie, his name has whistleblowers are often attacked. This is why people don't like whistleblowers. Look at McQuarrie. He couldn't even get a job in Rite Aid in State College because he's the guy that went to Joe Paterno. If he had just kept his mouth shut and let Jerry Sandusky continue to molest little boys, Penn State would still be, they might have won a national championship one of those years. That's the value system in State College, Pennsylvania. Thankfully not in East Tennessee. I do think that had some things to do. I don't think you can deny that. We know what went on. But where I'm going to is right now Tennessee has Alabama's defensive coordinator when they could have had Ohio State's defensive coordinator. In SEC country, that's a step up. I do suggest, if we're going to just talk about coaches, and again, I don't think it was ever in the cards for Schiano. I don't think it's ever in the cards for Schiano to be a head coach now after what happened to him that Sunday, what was it, now 11 days ago or so. I don't think it's ever in the cards for him to be a coach. Head coach. And I think also people that were looking for jobs, Tom Bradley, defensive coordinator at UCLA, interim coach of Penn State between Joe Paterno and Bill O'Brien. I don't think he's going to coach again. I really don't. Which is sad because he was out of coaching for a couple of years and he turned to radio sportscasting and it wasn't. Oh, that was bad to listen to. I listened to some of that. But those guys who are on that Penn State staff, I could look them up and see where they're at and all this, but I think it's going to be very difficult if any of them are coaching right now to get another job when their current coaching tenure ends. Schiano, after it is determined that he shall no longer be the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, be that because Urban Meyer fires him, or Urban Meyer's tenure comes to a close, or what, or he's not going to coach again. That's my prediction after what had happened here. So you can't deny the Penn State stuff, but again, if you can somehow throw that out, from a strictly football standpoint, would you rather have the Alabama defensive coordinator or the Ohio State defensive coordinator, but someone with some positives as a head coach, some negatives in Tampa Bay, but yes, some positives from Rutgers. 68 and 67 is big. That's good at Rutgers. It's not so good at Tennessee, but it's good at Rutgers. And although the way Tennessee's going, it's not so good in the SEC unless you're maybe Kentucky or Vanderbilt. And I actually think that their standards are improving, what with the extra TV money in. See what we're doing here? If you're on Facebook Live, you can see this, where I'm going, and I'm now getting my Marky's monologue thing. So, 6:05, we introduced the new coach. His name, of course, really, is it going to be Jeremy Pruitt, or is it going to be Philip Edward Fulmer Sr.? Because do you honestly think that Fulmer is going to be hands-off where the football program is concerned? Look, after Fulmer took over the coaching search for former AD John Curry, the attention shifted from taking current head coaches away from other programs to coordinators. Now, maybe that says a lot about where Tennessee football is right now. Let's see, or Purdue or Tennessee. I think I'll stay at Purdue. I think I'll stay at NC State for less money. I think I'll stay at Oklahoma State for less. Let's consider that. So now you have to look at coordinators. But also, a coordinator is not going to be able to tell Phil Fulmer, as the AD, I'm the coach, I know what I'm doing, get out. You hired me, I have experience. A coordinator who wants a head coaching job, yeah, he may be able to be manipulated a little bit more. Now, Fulmer is a manipulator. Part of that is manipulating athletes to win the 1998 national championship. part of that is, look how he got the head coaching job at UT back in 1992. Johnny Majors may not come right out. He actually has, I remember once sitting down with him 17 years ago saying, what happened? And he was very demonstrative. And he never, ever, ever once called Phil Fulmer by his name. Always. My successor. Ooh. And the thing is, a coordinator, yeah, he's going to be more receptive, as I said before, to, oh, okay, yeah, we'll do it that way, Mr. Fulmer. Whereas, you think Mike Gundy is going to really allow, a Phil Fulmer, and not that Gundy was ever, once Fulmer became the head coach, but just as a, someone with a track record. You'd think Mike Leach is going to say, well, you're absolutely right, Phil, we should run the ball more. Of course not. Now, the hire of Pruitt does speak, it's got Fulmer all over it. It is kind of reminiscent of the Carl Torbush hire that Fulmer had so much to do with at ETSU. And by the way, I've been critical of it on this show because he's 11-22. I'm very well known. I think that they ought to give Torbush a 4-year extension. Yeah, a 4-year extension. You need to do that, even in my opinion, FCS football, to bring in good recruiting classes. And right now, his contract ends in the middle of the summer. How are you going to recruit? This is one of the things where I say just SOBs down at ETSU, same old box. Basketball team is not that way. But SOB for the basketball team is a little bit different. But anyway, but it was a defensive coordinator. That's what Torbush was doing at Liberty at the time when he came into ETSU. Liberty, program going places. This is college football's. Do you think this is the all-time dynasty in college football? There's Notre Dame in the late 40s, let's say. There's Oklahoma in the 50s. Those are, Alabama, but that was basically controlling the SEC. Not that they didn't win their share of national titles under Bear Bryant. Give that. But that was a little bit more spread out than what the current success of Saban at Alabama has been. They're just tremendous dynasties. And, I don't know, there's, Jock Sutherland at Pitt. You want to go that far back to the single wing days and all this. Fielding Yost in Michigan, I guess. Somebody like that. But you really have people say, what about Rockne? Rockne had a movie made of him. Okay, that's what... In terms of a real dynasty, Miami in the 80s, that was a real dynasty. But I think Alabama has really, this current run they're on, it's supplanted what Miami did. Maybe Clemson now is going to, overtake that. Who knows? We'll find out more around the turn of the year. The difference between Pruitt and Torbush is that he's 23 years younger than Carl Torbush. And so there, with Fulmer, and remember, he was offered that ETSU head coaching job. I think it's a slap in the face to ETSU that Fulmer's the AD at Tennessee. Oh, I'm older. I don't want the ETSU job. No. Thanks for asking, but no. What he's saying is that's beneath me. We say, help us build a football program, and when push comes to shove, when it's really time for him to lead, it's beneath him. And then Tennessee comes around, he's older, now all of a sudden he's not so tired. Now all of a sudden he can do a head coaching search again. And what I could never figure out is that if you look at what Carl Torbush in the 11-22 record, it's a startup program. You can't compare. Actually, you can. Look what Kennesaw State's doing. Look what Old Dominion did. It really is the same old Bucks, SOB. There is not a whole lot of difference in what the production of ETSU is doing now. And this was supposed to be the year that they took off, had a winning record, all this. Instead, they regressed. And I like the staff there, and I say, give them another year at least. Give them a 4-year extension and at least another year here, Scott Carter. I say that all the time because you signed up for a 4-year plan. You got to let them go through with it. But right now, it doesn't appear to be working. The guy that brought Carl Torbush to ETSU is the guy that brings Jeremy Pruitt to Alabama. How will he do in Knoxville? Hopefully better. UT fans are going to put up with 11-22. And I realize it's a little bit more, the cupboard isn't quite as bare, but you know what? It's a rebuilding project there. Is Jared Guarantano going to stay? This is something that's not talked about. I mean, his father tweeted out, hey, fans, you didn't like Schiano, and I know they wanted Schiano. The Guarantanos wanted him. The former Rutgers coach, the Guarantanos, Jared Guarantano's father was a great receiver with Butch Jones on the staff at Rutgers. Maybe that's the problem with Tennessee football. They're looking too much at Rutgers. But, yeah, I mean, you've got a circumstance where his father, Guarantano's father, tweeted out, now what if the players aren't that happy with the hire? Well, now you've hired a defensive assistant, not an offensive assistant. You fired the man who, brought you to. I mean, that was the tie-in, was Butch Jones with Guarantano. Now, I don't think that if Jared Guarantano were to transfer away, it would be the end of the world for Tennessee football. I'm not all that enamored with Jared Guarantano. But just you'll have some transfers. It's a product. It's 4-8. There's a rebuilding project here, okay? Anyway, I do think Pruitt would be a fool not to pick the brain of Phil Fulmer. And this is a guy who, as recently as 2006, was coaching high school football. But the question is how much he will be manipulated by him. Fulmer, as we know, he can manipulate to his advantage. Let's just look. I mean, we talked about the coaching search. We talked about his tenure as a coach. Now let's look at Fulmer getting the AD job. 9 years ago, Fulmer is fired. I don't know if he's in disgrace, but he is fired, and he's not that popular. His day is done. And then what happens? In the 9 years since, he still hangs around the football program, still hangs around Knoxville, and eventually he's able to coerce himself into becoming the athletic director. He goes from fired football coach to the head of the entire program in 9 years. Now, I realize, especially after the last 9 years that Tennessee has had, that championship coach, his legacy always becomes much sweeter, much more positive in the time that follows from the end of his coaching tenure to in the future. Tom Landry, 3-13. I know a lot of people didn't like the way that he was let go by Jerry Jones. There's something to be said for that. But really, it was time. And there was a feeling of that. Boy, the Cowboys have fallen. So now Tom Landry, they've got a highway named after him in the Metroplex. The greatest coach there is, according to, I remember, the guys who said, the greats of previous generations, Noel, Landry, Shula, the game has passed them by. That's what it was always said at the end of his career. Sports Illustrated did a big piece on it. Now, they're all legends. You can't say anything bad about them. Last game, Chuck Noll beat Bill Belichick. How bad could he have been? Your legacy improves. In this case, to Fulmer being the AD, but rest assured, it's not just because waxing poetic got Fulmer the job. Some manipulation on his part, too. That's well known. He's a manipulator. He's been able to do that. And by the way, if Fulmer was hired just because of the memories of a 20-year-old national championship, then Tennessee athletics are in a worse position than we thought before. If that's the only way, they just said, well, let's look to the past to go and hire, a 68-year-old old coach for our AD just because he won a national championship 20 years ago. No. You have to manipulate your way back in, and Fulmer did that. Let's look at how Les Miles, his name really went on, in and out. You're not going to be able to manipulate Les Miles. You might be able to manipulate Jeremy Pruitt. He worked for Nick Saban. You don't think he was manipulated there? It's probably less manipulation going to happen with Fulmer, to be brutally honest, but manipulation nevertheless. I'm going to tell you, Miles wanted no part in a co-coaching situation. You know that. So that's why the search went to all coordinators in time, even though Miles was probably never going to get a job as a head coach as good as Tennessee again. Now, Tennessee is attempting to fire John Currie for cause because he acted independently. So do we really think that Pruitt will be allowed to work independently? He's not a bad hire. Not a bad hire at all. Top assistant from one of college football's all-time dynasties. Look what his predecessor, Kirby Smart, is doing at Georgia. Sign us up for Jeremy Pruitt. That's not the issue here. The issue is how much Pruitt will be allowed to lead, because that's going to be the determining factor on how successful he is going to be as a coach. I got Caleb Calhoun of All for Tennessee coming up next. We're going to talk more about this and all the things going on Tennessee football. Lots of stuff to talk about. Of course, Pearl Harbor Day. Even with Tennessee coaching cert, and that being the focus, we got to talk a little about that. Gerald Sensabaugh is running for office. We have a consultant, Jamie Osborne, who called that several months ago. Said he's going to go for office, ETSU, huge victory for him last time. I think that we can talk about him as an NCAA possibility again, repeating their tournament appearance. Of course, if they do, what does that mean for their future? Because that's going to improve the lot of Steve Forbes, and he's not getting any younger. And, he interviewed at New Mexico last year. Tri-City Sports Now comes back after this.
Store since '94